I messed up, guys. I totally forgot that I was supposed to be doing a weekly horoscope this week. I've been in the middle of recording 2021 horoscope, so I have like my computer set up here, all ready to go and everything, and I got distracted and forgot I have a weekly horoscope to do. And so here we are on Sunday morning recording this. I don't have anything ready, so this is going to be a very different one. But let's go ahead and get started because this week is actually really interesting. It's both very quiet and very loud at the same time. So I don't have any written things on here like I usually do, so I apologize for that. But anyway, let's go ahead and get started. We're starting this week off. The big major, the only thing that we really have going on Monday starting the week off is the moon's going to be in Pisces. It'll be making a conjunction to Neptune during this time. So on Monday, I always talk about the moon being in Pisces. Our emotions are kind of like wandering. We're very open to how we feel, but it can also be very confusing at the same time. The moon in Pisces, it's like, you could feel so much, but also not sure exactly what it is you're feeling. But this time with the moon in Pisces, it's also sextiling Jupiter and Saturn. So there is this realization almost. With the moon in Pisces, it's kind of like we can explore our emotions, we can, be more open with our emotions, and it makes that sextile to both Jupiter and Saturn. This is kind of grounding in a sense. Maybe this exploration or this enjoyment or this feeling of our emotions kind of helps us gain a little bit of ground, helps us gain a little bit of also maybe even creative energy when it comes to what Jupiter and Saturn's doing to your chart. As well, on Monday, the moon is going to be making a trine to Mercury. So with Mercury in Scorpio, I've been talking about this of, our communication being a lot more direct, being a lot more clean cut. With Mercury in Scorpio, likes to cut the fat off of stuff. It doesn't really like to waste its time with, being nice or, trying to extend a hand over to the other side. Mercury in Scorpio is much more, I'm communicating directly. I'm communicating, I don't want to say viciously because that almost makes it sound like it's antagonizing, but it's not always antagonizing. You can still communicate viciously in a positive way, or maybe not a positive way, but just in a neutral way. As the moon's in Pisces, making that trine to Mercury, Mercury in Scorpio is looking for a story. Mercury in Scorpio is looking to, again, like look underground, look through the depths of everything. And that moon in Pisces might be kind of like that intuition that helps you kind of like sniff out something specifically. The moon in Pisces could be that intuition that helps you kind of look or investigate in a specific area. As Mercury being, communication, thoughts, how we're exactly, I always like to look at Mercury as kind of like our mind track, like how we're kind of going, going about things with our mind, our mindset. Mercury's in Scorpio, it's fixed, we're focused, dilated, and as the moon's in Pisces trining that, this can both be good and bad, because the moon in Pisces could either be like, you're right on track, and maybe you're not on track, but the moon in Pisces is kind of like telling you are anyway. But it also can be really good too, because the Mercury in Scorpio is very perceptive, and Mercury in Scorpio can be trying to see through the veil, and everyone can be like, no, nothing's there, it's fine. But the moon in Pisces is like, your intuition could be a little bit more sharper than usual. And also on this day too, Mercury is going to be trining Neptune on Monday evening. So there is this, connection to your intuition. There's this connection to kind of seeing beyond things. What I saw someone on Twitter, I wish I could quote who the person was, but someone on Twitter was like, yeah, Mercury trining Neptune, and everyone's thinking like very magically. And I thought that was really funny, especially with like Mercury and Scorpio. It's so like tunnel vision. Like you can be so tunnel vision on what you're kind of looking at or what you're kind of doing that you don't even see anything else, and this tunnel vision can create sort of like a false reality that you're looking at. So with Mercury trining Neptune on Monday, it's a very kind of back and forth day. It's kind of an emotional day. I mean, we have a lot of water energy on this day. However, I think this is more of a day to kind of trust your intuition and your gut before you kind of do anything. As we move on to Tuesday, the only thing we've got going on Tuesday is just the moon is going to ingress into Aries here, and make a trine to the sun. So why I brought the trine to the sun up is as the moon ingresses into Aries, where our emotions are a lot more clear, we're a lot more blunt with how we feel. The moon in Pisces is kind of like, I'm a little bit of this, I'm a little bit of that, I'm kind of everywhere. Moon in Aries is much more, I'm blunt, I'm direct, this is what I feel like, this is what I'm deciding, this is what I'm going after, this is what I'm engaging in. As the moon's trining the sun in Sag, there's this fuck it energy. This like, pull the trigger, just go. Moon in Pisces, trining Mercury and Scorpio is kind of like, am I seeing things the right way? Is this what I want to do? It's kind of like exploring our emotions around it. Moon in Aries, trining the sun is like, yeah, just fuck it. Moon in Aries, sun in Sag, you know what I mean? It's as fuck it energy as it gets. So Tuesday, there's this, you're going to want to be taking a lot of action. You're going to be wanting to take a lot of impulsive action too. I think that's one of the key words there is impulsive. But also as the moon's in Aries, more frustration, more angry. The moon's going to be coming up to that conjunction with Mars and be making all that squares with everything in Capricorn too. So Tuesday is both good for initiating things. Tuesday is good for starting things. Tuesday is good for saying fuck it and just like going for something, kind of living out that fire energy. But also, don't be afraid to try to practice patience, because as we get into Wednesday, the only thing we've got going on Wednesday, like literally there's nothing else going on except this Moon-Mars conjunction. This Moon-Mars conjunction, if you're starting something and you're not willing to be patient, this can be very frustrating. The moon and Mars, yes, things are going to, like the moon conjoining Mars is like, the moon telling Mars like, all right, you've been retrograde for 3 months, and you've been stationary direction, you've been going slow. The moon conjoining Mars is like, pick up the pace a little bit. You're going way too slow for me. On Wednesday, when the moon conjoins Mars too, there's this kind of like lighting a fire underneath your ass. Like, oh, it's time to go. Like, it's time to do something. However, this is also Mars. Mars severs, Mars cuts. Mars shows us where fights and conflicts happen. So the moon conjoining Mars can be a time of kind of like separating your emotions, or the moon conjoining Mars can also just be like inflaming your emotions. The moon conjoining Mars can just be like aggravating, like frustrating. It's kind of like when you're like you're so, like when you get so angry, like you cry, like you get frustrated, like that's the moon in Aries conjoining Mars. You get so frustrated or angry that you just start crying and you get upset. So on Wednesday, like I said, all this fire energy is really fun. All this fire energy is really ambitious is a good word for it, but it is also vulnerable to things getting a little bit too intense, things getting a little bit too hot. So on Wednesday, just kind of, try to be patient. Mars is also moving slow, so the moon conjoining Mars. The moon is not the best convincer of Mars. Like, the moon's not going to be like, the moon can yell at Mars to keep going faster to, do what it wants, but the moon in Aries is very, moon doesn't always get what it wants. So I think on Wednesday, it can be a little bit frustrating. It can be a little bit aggravating. However, it is also really good for lighting that fire underneath your ass. Like, you might have to practice patience a little bit. Not everything's going to be so immediate, but this is going to be really good for like, all right, like let's get the ball rolling a little bit faster. Let's kind of get the momentum and the inertia going a little bit. Then we get into Thursday. On Thursday, not a lot is going on. But the moon is going to be making a square to Jupiter and Saturn right before it ingresses into Taurus. And so Thursday, with that moon square Jupiter, moon square Saturn, just because you are angry and just because you're motivated to do something, that doesn't mean it's going to happen. I am the same way. I think, I'm trying to explain this. Like, I experience this all the time where I'm like, I want things now. I'm a Gen Z. Like, I want things now. I want that immediate gratification. And that moon in Aries making the square to Jupiter and Saturn is very like, no, like you can't get that right now. It's not happening right now. No matter how hard you force, no matter how hard you push, it's not going to happen. The moon in Aries squaring Jupiter in Capricorn is very much like, you can only push so hard with the tools that you have. You don't want to break your tools. You don't want to break, like let's say if, you're hammering things with a really bad hammer, you don't want to like hammer the crap out of it, because if that hammer breaks, that could injure you. And I think that moon squaring Jupiter is kind of the time to go, how emotionally invested are you into your projects? And is that like, I feel like the moon in Aries squaring Jupiter, there's some frustration. Things aren't as big or as grand as you want them to be. Things aren't perfect. You know what I mean? And the moon in Aries squaring Jupiter is kind of like having to reconcile with that. The moon in Aries is like, well, I don't have all of the resources, or Jupiter in Capricorn is like, I don't have all of the resources. I don't have the finest wood in the land for you to build your house, but I do have this cheaper wood for you to build your house. And the moon in Aries is like, that's frustrating. That's really annoying, but whatever. You're just going to have to take it. The moon is also making a square to Saturn. So this is putting a halt. This is putting a delay. This is putting a wall to things. There's some authority that kind of gets in your way of where you're trying to go. So, like I said, a little frustrating right here. But the moon in Aries also making the square to Saturn is reconciling, like, okay, what can I do and what can I not do right now? What am I capable of doing? What is possible for me in this moment? And what is not possible for me in this moment? I don't think not everything in right now in the universe and the astrology says no. There's a lot of things that are like yes, but you can go slow at it, and there's a lot of things that do say no. This moon in Aries squaring Saturn is like, knowing where things are going to take some more time in your life and knowing where you can actually, put some energy into things. Just because, let's say if we're building a house, let's say we're waiting for permits to actually lay down the concrete, or we're waiting for permits to whatever, there's other things that we can do in the meantime rather than just sitting and waiting for those things to go through. And I think that's what this moon in Aries is going to be looking like on Thursday. Either way, we're going to be really energized to do something, emotionally charged to do something. But then the moon moves into Taurus, where a couple things are kind of going on. Like when the moon first moves into Taurus later on that evening, that's where we're going to feel a little bit more comfortable. That's where we're going to feel a little bit more grounded. We're going to feel a little bit more like, all right, let's get in our zone. Let's get, our creature comforts happening. But then we go into Friday. Friday is different. Friday is a lot more interesting. Friday is not like the rest of the week. In fact, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday are one whole thing, and Friday, Saturday, Sunday are a whole nother world. Like, I can't emphasize that enough. Monday and Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday are like normal days. We start Friday, and then this weekend kind of changes everything, because I know this is kind of like off the cuff horoscope. We do have eclipses. We're literally ending this week with the eclipses, and then we start December with the eclipses. That's kind of changing a lot. And it all kind of starts with Friday with with Venus going opposite Uranus for the whole day. But what's also interesting is that the moon this whole time is going to be conjoining Uranus exactly when Venus goes opposite. So that's a really sensitive point. Venus is in Scorpio, where Venus is about value and attraction and substance and what we value, what we cherish, what we want to indulge ourselves in. And in Scorpio, I made a tweet about this. I was like, no one's talking about Venus in Scorpio, and because no one was at the time. And then I tweeted that everyone started talking about Venus in Scorpio, but then everyone also started going like, oh, Venus in Scorpio, can't wait to have sex. Oh, Venus in Scorpio, like I'm horny, blah 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 blah. And it's like, that's not always how it works. Like, just because you hear Venus in Scorpio doesn't just mean sex all the way. Like, Venus is the planet of value and love and relationships, and Scorpio's her detriment. Like, she doesn't really act all that well here. Scorpio is also, a lot of people commented on it. Kira from the astrology show, she had a great, she quote tweeted me saying, like Scorpio is like one of the driest water signs. It's barren. It's literally a desert. Like the Scorpion has to go long times without, certain things that it needs, certain creature comforts. And Venus in Scorpio is kind of like in that position where, yeah, what we value, maybe it's not there all the way. What we really want isn't necessarily there. So what do we have that we can cherish? What do we have that we can hold on to? If you watch my horoscopes, I literally do not shut up about Scorpio and trees or plants. Like plants during Scorpio season, at least here in the Northern Hemisphere, they let go of all their flowers, they let go of all their leaves, and they really sink their energy to their core, to their roots, and they hold on to that to get through the winter. And so while Venus is in Scorpio, like our values, what are we holding on to that's going to get us through that? Now, the problem, though, is that the moon is going to be in Taurus conjoining Uranus. So that already shows us, where we're usually used to stability, where we're usually used to being comfortable, there's something wrong with it. This is like, the moon in Taurus conjoining Uranus is like, you finally get home from work, you're ready to sit on your fucking lazy boy and watch whatever show you're going to check out on, and you finally sit down, and then you go to hit the recliner and pull back, and then the spring breaks and your chair doesn't work anymore. And it's just like, it's just one of those frustrating things. It's a very first world problem. But the moon in Taurus conjoining Uranus is there's something destabilizing. Where the moon in Taurus wants to be usually comfortable, there's something kind of getting shooken up here. Yes, you're probably thinking, Cameron, you're being really negative right now about Uranus. Uranus can bring positive results. Uranus can be unexpected good things, unexpected, unexpected stability is Uranus and Taurus, unexpected value, unexpected cherishables. But I just don't think that's going to be the case with Venus opposite Uranus, because Venus is in Scorpio, holding on to what she has, and Uranus is in Taurus being like, well, that an opposition is literally like kind of like a Mexican standoff. It's this planet versus this planet. And it's kind of like Venus and Scorpio betting all in with what little chips it has and kind of losing here. And so what this really looks like to me is things that we're kind of holding on to don't have as much stability as we might want them to. Let's say we are a plant, and we are, now that Venus is in Scorpio, we're kind of letting go of, the leaves and the flowers in order to kind of, maintain our energy and our core to get through the winter. Venus and Scorpio opposite Uranus and Taurus is like, well, this is a flood year. So there's a lot of mudslides. And so then you lose a lot of that soil, and you lose a lot of that ground that was actually holding you there. And so you kind of have to hold on a little bit tighter, or you're going to, and it's not like you are going to hold on a little bit tighter. You're going to feel like you have to hold on tighter. That's another thing with Venus and Scorpio. Venus and Scorpio is very like, I won't let go because this is what I have. This is all I have. So I'm not going to just give this up willingly. Venus opposite Uranus really shakes that up of like, you're going to be in a position where maybe you have a tight grip on something, but outside forces or outside circumstances kind of loosen that grip a little bit and maybe cause some insecurity, maybe cause some scarcity. So I think on Friday, Venus, and then this is also Venus's day opposite Uranus. Expect the unexpected. Expect things to go either, I don't want to say dramatically worse or better, but it's very much like if we're holding on to things the right way, I think this can be a dramatically stabilizing event. It just kind of really depends on, in my opinion, fate and how the universe likes you or not. But this is definitely shaking things up. This is definitely, this is also Venus in Scorpio. Venus is in her detriment. Like, Venus is not comfy right now. So this is going to feel uncomfortable, I think, regardless if it's a good or a bad thing. You could still get good things and still feel uncomfortable about it. So yeah, that's Friday. And Friday, and this really shakes things up because the rest of the weekend is really weird. It's really funky. The rest of the weekend is, I think, good, but I would also like to say it's bigger. It's a little powerful, which is it's kind of a bold statement I'm making with that. But Friday is shaky. We move into Saturday, and this is when we get Mercury sextiling Jupiter with the moon trining it too. This is awesome. This is, in my opinion, a really good transit because the moon, or Mercury now in Scorpio, when we're direct, when we're clear, when we're so hyper focused and so just dead on tight with like what we're thinking, with what we're wanting to communicate. Sextiling Jupiter in Capricorn, it's like, I would also say too, Mercury in Scorpio is kind of double checking everything, crossing your T's and dotting your I's, and as it sextiles Jupiter in Capricorn, checking over everything, making sure you're looking through all of the layers of everything, can really save your ass. Like, Mercury in Scorpio sextiling Jupiter in Capricorn is like some issues that Jupiter in Capricorn could have get a little bit resolved because Mercury in Scorpio can perceive so deeply, can perceive through so many things. So Mercury sextiling Jupiter is going to be really good for having conversations, for communicating, especially for being really clear about communicating something and being very blunt with it. And also, it's Jupiter in Capricorn. This is like getting a message across. This is like, things that you could beat around the bush a little bit when Mercury was in Libra squaring Jupiter. Mercury's in Scorpio sextiling Jupiter. It's like, no one wants to be the person to fire someone, but someone's got to do it. And I think Mercury in Scorpio sextiling Jupiter, it's like, this kind of is a very helpful pass for cutting things that, otherwise are a little bit more difficult to cut off. And also, the moon's still in Taurus, making this trine to Jupiter. So there's the moon's in Taurus, right? It's exalted here. We're comfortable. The moon is also gaining in light here in Taurus. So there's this, increase in stability. There's this increase in comfortability. There's this increase in value or in solidity as it's trining Jupiter. Jupiter in Capricorn, like I said, since I've been saying since the beginning of the year, Jupiter in Capricorn is very, this is what we've got. It's not the best, but it will get us by. And that moon in Taurus trining Jupiter is very like, hey, like I've made this work. If you if you have $3,000, you can go and buy a shitty Honda Accord or a shitty Toyota Camry or whatever. And if you change the oil on it and you take care of that car will last you a really long time. And in fact, will probably be cheaper to maintain than any newer car on the market. And so I think that moon trining Jupiter is like, if you take care of and if you really value things for just, even if it's not perfect, it's just what you have, it can get you really, really far. And I think that's kind of the whole message with this Mercury sextiling Jupiter, moon trining Jupiter thing is like, you just have to, you can't wait. If you got that old Camry, you can't just wait to change the oil on that shit. You can't just put it off. Like Mercury and Scorpio is like, oh, I got to change the oil right now. Like moon and Taurus is like, oh yeah, like I got to make sure my car is always clean, is taken care of. It can take you really, really far. And what I wanted to bring up with this on Saturday is that there's this affirmation of things working. It may be again, you're not driving a Lamborghini. You're still driving a Toyota Camry. So you're not going anywhere fast, but it's working really well and your car is operating very smoothly. Things are running efficiently here. I think the Venus opposite Uranus thing is destabilizing. I think that does shake things up. However, I think there is a resolution by the time we get to Saturday. There is something that gets resolved or things get built up better again. And then we get to Sunday and everything kind of changes because we get to Sunday and that's when the moon goes into Gemini and would you look at that? The sun is opposite the moon. We all know what that means, or at least we should all know what that means. That means it was a full moon, but in fact, this isn't going to be a full moon because the nodes are here. So we're actually starting eclipse season, and this is a prenumeral eclipse. Now, before the moon even goes into Gemini, I want to also state that the moon will be in Taurus, first making a trine to Saturn before it leaves Taurus and enters Gemini. So the moon in Taurus trining Saturn is very like, now that you've taken care of things and you may not have all that you wanted, but you took care of and you utilized what you could in the best way possible. The moon trining Saturn is like, if you've taken care of that Camry, if you've taken care of that car, now you can get yourself to work on time. Now you can go and do all of these things that you couldn't do before. There's this responsibility factor, and I think the moon in Taurus trining Saturn is there's a reward with responsibility. That Camry works now. You can get yourself to car, or you can get yourself to work. You can go and get all your groceries. You know what you should do? Also take that car and go on a nice, relaxing drive. Go on rewarding yourself for your hard work. I think is the moon in Taurus trining Saturn. And if you've remained disciplined, if you've remained committed to, there's a reward here. But then the moon moves into Gemini, and we start this prenumeral eclipse, which we have technically, it'll be it's the night of the 29th, morning of the 30th. So this is where it gets a little bit funky because these eclipses are very I almost want to say out of left field. Sun's now in Sagittarius, eclipse season starting. What started in May and June of this year? Because you have to remember the nodes just moved into Sag to Gemini earlier this year. So when we talk about the nodes, and if you've had a reading with me, I talk about the nodes like this all the time. The nodes really just activate parts of your chart. It's activating this axis, this axis, this axis. Where is Gemini and Sag in your chart? And how has that been activated since basically May and June? I remember so I'm a 29 degree Sag rising, and when the nodes went into Sag, it went from zero Capricorn to 29 Sag, and that south node hit my ascendant super hard. And I mean I was drained for I'd never taken as many naps as when the south node was on my ascendant. I do not take naps. You look at me. I'm literally always energized. I don't take naps. I took a nap every day for 2 weeks. That's not like me. But why I'm bringing this up is what started during then? What did you realize that you had to change? What did you realize that had to be let go of? What information were you learning at the time, and what information were you gaining access to? Because now that the moon is in Gemini and it's full, and this is an eclipse, this is that information that we've received. That information is now coming to fruition at some point. Whatever we started in May and June, in the solar eclipse it's technically. See, June was weird because May and June had both eclipses in Cancer and Gemini and Sag, so it was kind of like a transitional phase. This is things are now locked in Gemini, Sag. and ask yourself what happened in May and June that you kind of reset it on, that you kind of, set your intentions towards, because now that's coming to fruition, and now it's really blossoming here now. But these are eclipses, so this is like dramatic events. Sometimes eclipses aren't always things that you go out of your way to do. It's sometimes just life throws you a curveball and bam, here you go, deal with it now. So I think on Sunday, expect a curveball. Expect literally the universe to be like, bam, this is what you're focusing on. Look at it with your houses and what houses it rules in your chart. But I also think that this is a full moon. This is a lunar eclipse. So the moon is being eclipsed here, not necessarily the sun. And the moon is being eclipsed by the earth. So I think that with the moon being in Gemini, the North Node being in Gemini, this information that we're learning, this data that we're taking in, this new information that we're understanding, now that the moon's full in Gemini, it's all becoming clear. But I think with that eclipse, it's like, whoa, we realize that this information may mean more than we thought. And you also have to remember, the sun's making its way towards the South Node. The sun's in Sagittarius right now. So I feel like there's this full moon in Gemini where we go, oh, this is what we realize. And then for the rest of the next couple weeks, until we get to the solar eclipse, is, oh, now that I've realized this, now that I understand this is what I've got to let go of. This is what I've got to change. Now that I'm aware of this information, now that this has come to fruition, I've got to drain this. I've got to dump this. This is not working for me anymore. So Sunday, again, like I said, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, just a normal week. We get into Friday, Saturday, Sunday, everything kind of changes. Friday's kind of has a little bit of instability. Saturday I think actually has a lot of stability. Saturday looks really affirming, but then Sunday we're moving on to something else. You know what I mean? It's kind of like when you watch a TV show and you're like, hey, finally this is getting resolved, and then another plot twist happens. But this is all stuff that we've all kind of seen coming too. And that's kind of like it for Sunday. Next week, we'll have Mercury making a sextile to Saturn. Eclipse season starts technically on Sunday, so we'll be talking a lot about it on Monday. So we'll be in the middle of eclipse season. Mercury moves into Sagittarius on next week too. And we have that Venus trine Neptune. If you watched my December monthly horoscope, I kind of actually talked a lot about that Venus trine Neptune. I think it's going to be pretty fun. So next week has a lot going on too. I think, and if you watch my monthly horoscope too, the first 2 weeks of December are pretty boring for the most part. It's those last 2 weeks of December where it's like, 2020 is going to end with a bang. 2020 is going to end on a huge high note, on a crazy, crazy note. And 2021 is going to start on a crazy note. And it's going to stay that way till like February. So enjoy the calmness while it's there. But this week is very, in my opinion, kind of about getting things done, getting the ball rolling. We like at first with that moon in Pisces, we kind of get clear about some stuff emotionally. Moon goes into Aries, we're feeling more charged up. We have to be patient. We have to use what we have. But then the moon goes into Taurus. There's a little bit of a shakeup, and then the moon starts to trine Jupiter and Saturn, and things get a little bit stable again. And then bam, eclipse season starts. And eclipse season, I always say, weirdest 2 weeks out of the 6-month period. Things are gonna get wacky. Things are gonna get crazy. So just look at where Sag and Gemini is at in your chart and go from there. So with that being said, thank you guys so much for being here, liking, sharing, commenting, subscribing. I love and appreciate every single one of you guys, and I'll be seeing you next week.